Welcome to our live video chat, Family Resiliency and Fatherhood. My name is Reba Collins with the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church. Today, our guest speakers, Ms. Kimberly Dent, Executive Director for the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, and Mr. Harold Howard, President of the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families, will be connecting the dots for us between responsible fatherhood, thriving families, and equitable outcomes in the community. In addition, we'll learn a few tips on how we can support families better by supporting fathers better in our communities. Plus, I'm really excited. We're going to get a sneak peek at what to expect at this year's Ohio Fatherhood Summit. That's coming up on September 2 and 3 and 5. In just less than a month. So we're very excited to get a sneak peek on that, and we'll get some information on how to register. So for now, I just want to welcome and thank Director Dent and Mr. Howard. Thank you both for being here so much, for giving of your precious time, and for sharing your expertise and wisdom with us today. So I'd just like to start out with just kind of some base level information, because Ohio is only one of 3 or 4 states that actually has zero.
Almost.
I'll
explain it when I speak. Yeah.
Okay, so it's very rare for a state to have a commission on fatherhood, and so we are blessed to have Director Dent as the executive director of that. So, Director Dent, can you just, for those that are unfamiliar with your agency, can you tell us about the role and the purpose of the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Reba. And it's so good to see so many familiar faces, my goodness, and names for those of you who don't want to be on camera. I understand that sometimes, bad hair days. So yes, absolutely. The Ohio Commission on Fatherhood is uniquely, I love to use that word uniquely positioned in the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. So it is a state agency. We are TANF funded, and we actually sit in the Office of Family Assistance because, again, that's where TANF actually is. And we are funded under TANF purposes 3 and 4. So there are 4 purposes for TANF. I'm so happy to see Josh, my project manager, on the call as well. But for fatherhood, we take a look at TANF purposes 3 and 4, which is preventing out-of-wedlock pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies. And so we can put that under preventing premature fatherhood, preventing teen pregnancy, so forth and so on. And then the 4th purpose of TANF is promoting 2-parent families in marriage. So that's how fatherhood is funded under TANF. And that's why we are uniquely positioned in the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services Office of Family Assistance. And our purpose, we actually have 4 specific charges for the commission. We bring an awareness to the important role that fathers play in their children's lives. We fund programs, which is the majority of my budget that goes towards funding programs to provide services to low-income fathers and families. We're at the table when various policies or maybe even some legislation has been changed or is planning to be changed. And then lastly, we train practitioners. So again, for all of you who want to keep up with when we're offering free trainings, when we have the summit, when we're offering funding, please ensure to register your email addresses on our website at fatherhood.ohio.gov. When you put your email address there, you get everything that we're letting everyone in Ohio know about.
Thank you, Director Dent. And that is a great segue into the practitioners piece of it, because you sit as a government agency, but then we have folks that are in the field that are actually implementing the dollars and the policies and things like that. And so, Mr. Howard, can you tell us about the function and the purpose of the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families?
Yeah, thanks, Reba. Thanks for having me. And Kim, I agree. It's good to see a lot of familiar face. I see my guy, Mr. Cummings, on the call. So, Community Action Agency in Cincinnati, Ohio. So a little bit about myself before I talk about the Practitioners Network. I play a role at Talbot House, located in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I am the current board president for the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. That acronym is OPNFF, whatever works for you. It's always funny to hear people try to say it 3 or 4 times. And so, our mission with the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families is to enhance the outcomes of children, families, and communities by providing information, training, and encouragement to fathers and father family servant practitioners. What's near and dear to our heart is to make sure that fatherhood serving programs throughout the state of Ohio are well equipped, well informed around public policy, legislation, adequately trained to serve the fathers in the state of Ohio. We are a very passionate group of individuals who really want to see, fathers get their needs met. We all feel that there is a very small window for us to make a huge impact, and we want to get it right because we understand that at its core, behind the father is a family, and the more that we can help him succeed, the more that we can help the entire family succeed. So, I asked you all when you get an opportunity to visit the OPNFF website, which is opnff.net. And what you will see when you visit that website is a wealth of information and resources down to, programming that is located in whatever geographical area that you're at. I'm sorry, I've been in meetings all day, so I feel like I'm running out of words here. Also, you will see content around evidence-based curriculum as it goes with fatherhood program. You'll see information around policy and practices. So we're just, again, excited to be a part of this conversation today.
Thank you, Dr. Howard. It sounds like, and I hope that everybody on the call is picking up, that there's this real partnership between the public, right, of Commission on Fatherhood, and then the plural of OPNFF. Yeah, that is kind of hard to say.
Say it 3 times, Reba, 3 times.
Oh, you just rattle it off, Kim, all the time. I know, I'm like, okay. So, and those are the kind of partnerships that move systems, that change systems, change structures, make sure that we are all working together, putting our energies and efforts, breaking down silos, which at this time with the pandemic and things like that going on, those are critical. Those are critical things we need to do. So, Mr. Howard, another question back to you. Can you give us kind of the history of how this partnership began, and then kind of what's the current purpose and focus for the partnership between the two of you?
Yeah, I think this is a partnership that dates back 14 to 15 years. And one of the things that we both have been just adamantly trying to make sure that is important throughout our entire state is just to advance fatherhood. Everybody has their definition of, what fatherhood work looks like. People have their thoughts and opinions about the role that fathers play in our society. What we try to do from an OPNFF perspective, and then OCF, Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, is, come together and collectively, use data to make informed decisions to educate our entire state about the importance of advancing fatherhood. And so collectively, we have worked to really define what fatherhood work needs to look like for the state of Ohio. For us, that means, making sure that programming is robust and that it includes, case management services, that it includes employment services, that it includes co-parenting, that it includes legal services. And this is through, obviously our history of providing direct services to fathers that, now we're able to collectively come together and figure out what really works to move the needle for fathers and families. And so Director Dent has been on this crusade throughout the entire state to continue to define the work for all of our counties, all of our fatherhood programs, and so have OPNFF. The other part of that is the community mobilization projects. This is something that's near and dear to Director Dent's part as well. And so what we want to do is make sure that each and every county in the state of Ohio has a county-wide fatherhood program. And so to date, I believe we've had about
29,
29
29 counties done.
29 counties. And so, our crusade is to get the remaining counties, adequately working within the fatherhood realm. And then we also provide consultation and back-end support to the commission as well. As I said before, you look at our board of directors for OPNFF, there's a combined 126 years of experience there. And so, we work very closely with Director Dent, around policy and also around what programming needs to look like. Director Dent, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think you're spot on with that. And that's what I really love about the partnership, because I tell you, the Commission on Fatherhood has been in statute since 1999, so we shall exist. If anyone has time to ever go out to Ohio Revised Code, it's 5101.34, and that's where you will see sort of the structure, so forth and so on. But there was a time during a certain administration when the commission was not decommissioned, but it didn't have any funds. So OPNFF sort of carried that torch for the work that was started under the administration in 1999. And so I thank them for that, because it's almost like there were really no gaps with forming their network. And so when at that time, Governor Strickland took office, he gave new life to the commission. And it's really just been thriving ever since, and actually thriving even more so because of the support that we have from Governor DeWine and from the General Assembly members that are part of the commission that gave us additional funds to do other things that I'll talk about a little bit later. But, Harold talked about the data. That's very important to me, because that's how I was able to get additional money in our budget. Because again, receiving TANF funds, we want to be able to show return on investment, right? So return on investment is very important. And how do we collect that data? So we have to have the funds, of course, to run the commission and to provide to our grantees, but we also need to have a very comprehensive and thorough data collection tool as well that OPNFF has helped us out with. So we work with Steve Kilpack at OPNFF under contract to collect that data that Harold had spoken about a little bit ago.
All right. Wow, that's a lot. I want to, at the end of our time together, to come back to the community mobilization project, because I think some people will be interested in that, but I want to just move on for the sake of time.
And Reba, I wanted to real quickly mention the community mobilization project is one of the breakout sessions for the summit as well. So
we'll get to that then. All right.
Right. So yeah, so there will be more information at the summit if anyone attends that session that Mr. Howard will moderate.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So last year, both Director Dent and Mr. Howard attended our November's Building Bridges of Opportunity event with Dr. Tia Martinez on the Community to Prison Pipeline. And in the very beginning of her presentation, Dr. Martinez pointed out that family is the first community that we all experience, right?
Yes.
And when the family becomes vulnerable due to a variety of factors, and today we see much more of that because of the pandemics we're in, that increases the risk of children ending up in that community to prison pipeline. So, Director Dent, I would just like for you to break down just a few of the fatherhood factors that put a family in that vulnerable position. What are some of the drivers into vulnerability?
Absolutely. So right out the gate, I'm going to say prevention. And when I say that, when people, dads, moms, have children before they're ready, before their foundation of being able to handle certain issues, when you're bringing children into the world and your foundation is not steady. And when I say your foundation, your emotional foundation, your spiritual foundation, your financial foundation, just whatever it is that you define for yourself that you feel it makes you that person that can sustain life for yourself. So before that happens for you, when you start to add children to that equation, when you're not quite there, it's already a vulnerable family because that structure and that foundation is not strong enough. And I'm going to kind of pull back a little bit on that comment because I know if we're going to talk a little bit about family resiliency, I want to save some of those comments for that topic. So when we are working with funding programs, so at this point, we're funding a pilot project called No Kidding Ohio. And that, again, thanking my General Assembly folks and the governor for the extra funds, because it's always kind of been, as President Howard said, my crusade throughout the state, that we are doing some amazing work in what I call reactive fatherhood programming, right? So we have dads that are in need. They have child support arrears. There may be a felony charge, no relationship with mom, no relationship with his child. And we're at that point in his life. So for me, if we can prevent those situations upstream with the No Kidding Ohio program that we have now launched in Cuyahoga County and also in Fairfield County, where we're in middle schools with that prevention piece of, ensuring that at that age, our youth understand what it is to be a parent, and the peer educator is a young parent. So when we talk about that vulnerable, and I just kind of remember with Dr. Martinez sort of talking about the baby, right? So when the baby is born into the family, and then my mind went to the issue that Ohio has with infant mortality, especially in the African-American communities. And if that baby is born into a family that's toxic, or if mom does not carry the baby to full term and the baby is in NICU rather than receiving the skin-to-skin touch, which is so important, right, for that emotional growth, and then the first 3 years of the baby's life, right? And so when we talk about vulnerable families, if you're already in a vulnerable situation and you bring that infant into that vulnerable family, then that's that prison pipeline, right? Because the child, and as she walked us through it, I tell you, all kind of bells and whistles went off for me. So it's like, wow. And then it was, so where do you stand in that pipeline? Where do you stop the flow of that pipeline, which I really loved. So that's my, I guess, 2 cents on the vulnerable family and how it relates to, to dad. He being there can help with, a healthy birth outcome for many, many reasons. We're actually funding another pilot project called Dads to Be. They're connected with Moms to Be at The Ohio State University. Again, it's that early intervention piece. So if you do have a child and it's your first child, or maybe not even your first child, but you want to get it right, so you can join Dads to Be as long as mom is with Moms to Be. And we're going to teach you some strategies on how to help your partner, your wife, whomever, have a healthy birth outcome, and then get your baby to his or her first birthday. So early intervention and prevention.
All right. Thank you. And so I want Mr. Howard kind of taking that further, that we got a lot of fathers now that are in unstable situations, and families are unstable. So talk to us a little bit about how fathers, building that foundation in fathers actually contributes to family stability, and then actually prevents the children from going into the pipeline.
Yeah, and if I could just go back, just to add to Kim's statement, I think the other part, the other factor is just, the role or the relationship between the mother and the father. That has a huge impact on, putting families being in a vulnerable place. And so, again, from the practitioner's perspective, when we think about fatherhood work, it's more than just working with the father. It's really about working with the entire family. Because what we absolutely know is, the more that we can help father get his needs met and also help mother get her needs met, the better they can complement each other as co-parenting partners. And so the more that, we can continue to make sure that when it comes to programming, that we are intentional about as much as our resources allow us to do. And I want to be, respectful to that, make sure that we can work with the entire family because, again, a lot of what we see coming in the door is that there's a lot of wounds and, between the two parties, and those wounds are really hindering their ability to be effective co-parenting partners. And then, ultimately, I think we all agree that the ultimate loser in that is the child. And so, the more that we can impact, how we serve, both parents is critical to this mission. Going to your question around, kind of that unique role, fathers set the tone. Everything starts with the father. They set the tone. And so, our goal from a practitioner's perspective is, as I just stated, is to get that father in a good place. Typically, based off of what we see when they come in the door, there are some barriers that they identify, and through the assessment process, there are other barriers that, persist as well. But typically what we see is trauma, we see wounds, we see, a lot of things that they have going on in their lives on top of trying to be a parent to their child or children. And so again, the more that we could, assist them by providing them with those critical services that they need to really get in a good place. And that includes mental health and addiction services as well. I mean, I only speak for our program. It's something that we're going to be very, intentional about, over the next few years to make sure that we make those connections because, going back to setting that tone, our children are always watching. And so the more that we can, put stuff into that father's cup, the better off he's going to be as a father. I think the other part of that, the father brings that parental relatives, the grandmother, the grandfather, the aunt, the uncle. We always use that village concept. The more that, father is engaged and that child knows, the other side of his family, even if father is not in a great place, hopefully somebody within that structure of that family could be that support system, that village for that child to, reduce the likelihood of them being in that pipeline. And then the other part of that is, fathers attenuate the likelihood of negative outcomes for their children. We know what all the data says about, when it comes to, sex, when it comes to education, when a father is not involved, the more he's involved, obviously, the more he can curb some of those negative outcomes that persist out there. And then we think about this simply, he brings the otherness to the relationship. And so we know the benefits that mom bring, and typically mom is the custodial parent, mom is the gatekeeper. But, typically what happens when the father is not involved is the child only has one side or one perspective of, worldview. So father brings that other side. He brings his experience. He brings his uniqueness of being a man, of being a father, to the equation as well. And so collectively, all of those things, when functioning in the right direction, reduces the likelihood of the child falling within that pipeline. I know that was a lot, but hopefully.
That was a lot. Thank goodness we're recording this for the podcast. So yeah, we can go back and replay all of that. Wow. So that kind of leads into the next kind of taking it again a little bit further out, drawing the lens out a little bit. One of the things that Dr. Martinez's presentation made very clear to us is that we've kind of been in this cycle of, in many ways, disrupting families, making them unstable over the last 40 some years. And that started, with policies and things like that, mass incarceration, which it's very complex, but very connected and integrated. So my question is, and Director Dent, talk to us a little bit about, kind of where we sit right now, as far as the ability to really speak into family resiliency. What is it, and how do we really start to attack it? And then there's a question in the chat that I think is on everyone's mind, and it goes to the current economic impact of COVID and how that has made it more difficult
Mhm.
to even address fatherhood, families, family resiliency, all that kind of stuff.
Right, right. And so you all see too why I walk this journey with OP and FF, because we can complete each other's thoughts and complete each other's words, so forth and so on. And actually that's where I was going with what Harold had talked about, the village. So let me just, for myself, define for you what I feel family resiliency is. A lot of folks think about family resiliency as money. It's the economics, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, you're resilient when you have enough money to fill in the blank, but it's not just economics. It's not just your finances. It's sort of, to piggyback on what Harold stated, it's the structure. It's the structure of your family to handle issues like COVID. There are folks that had money, right? That had a job. And when you looked at them and you said, okay, well, that's a resilient family. Well, COVID hit and folks were losing their jobs. So are you now not a resilient family, right? Do you have that village on both the maternal and the paternal side of the family? So when hardships or something traumatic does enter into your family, is your family still resilient, right? And so I think that we do have some of those answers, because I think with COVID-19 hitting, and folks losing their livelihood, losing the way they pay their bills, right? We've seen some contentious things happen. And then if you're losing your home, or you're losing, now you used to go to Kroger and purchase your food. Now you're going to the food bank. Or maybe you're on public assistance and you've never been on public assistance before. But is your family structure strong enough to sustain that? And you need the village. And that's exactly, what Harold was talking about. And when I talk about, at the front end, that foundation, the stronger it is, COVID or anything else is not going to, really penetrate that family resiliency as badly as others who were already built on sort of a wobbly foundation. And so, yes, we do see, and I know, just with us working from home still with the state, we are still funding programs because we are allowing them to serve virtually, because more now than ever, we need to ensure that we are getting these services out, employment services, co-parenting, as Harold had mentioned, and how to parent during COVID as well. Folks are, domestic violence issues have gone up. Child Protective Services had reported when COVID first hit that there was less reporting. Didn't mean that these children were not experiencing neglect or abuse. It's just that the folks that are mandated reporters, the schools, like the teachers, the nurses, right, the counselors, they're no longer seeing these kids. Everyone is sort of behind the doors of their homes, of their homes. So yes, I mean, COVID has really, hit families and continues to hit families hard. But again, I think if we take what it has taught me, I think if we take resiliency from just making it about money and making it more about the village, the community, the extended family, your church, right? Your faith leaders, how are we building resilient families? Are we just basing it on employment, on jobs, which again is very important, but we can't just focus on that.
Yeah. Okay. So some of it is attending, even going back to your original thing, and then I want Mr. Howard to kind of chime in. It's the foundation of the emotional, the spiritual, making sure that people are in a healthy place, mentally, physically. Those kind of things is equally as important as the economic side of it. In fact, that might actually drive more the ability to go out and continue to look for a job.
Right. And I'll say, yes, absolutely. Because, the programs that we fund some amazing fatherhood programs in the state and have been for years. And one of the things I can honestly say is our programs didn't really have issue getting dads jobs, even in Ohio. And, we really didn't have an issue with that, getting him the job, but maintaining the job, right? And for various reasons. And if that father was not job ready for, again, various reasons. I know that Harold talked a little bit about mental health and addiction, right? We do a domestic violence screening, so forth and so on. So again, even with our programs, yes, we do want that end result to be a responsible father. You have to financially provide for your child. That's okay. But we have to address all of those barriers and those issues that hinder dads from getting to that end result. We can't forget about those other issues that have to be addressed. So he has to be job ready. And if he's not job ready, why not? We have to address those other issues. But so yes, again, the financial piece is absolutely important, but we have to take a look holistically at dad, at the father. We have to address any trauma. Again, if he's a restored citizen, we need to make sure, okay, he has a felony charge. And so we're working, with him to maybe, do any type of expungement if that qualifies, or maybe the CQE, so that he can have a certificate to be employed gainfully and legally employed. So again, that's why the case management is very important. So we have to look at dad not just as a dollar sign or a job or the financial paycheck person that pays the bills. We have to look at him holistically, because he's the father, and fathers have many, many roles that they play. And so that's why I feel that, COVID-19 has really kind of made me take a step back and say, wow, this was a pretty strong, resilient, financially resilient family, but now they're on the verge of divorce. Right? I mean, they're not able to sustain because someone lost their job.
Yeah.
That's troubles me. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Even for them, it's helping people realign within the families what resiliency looks like. That it's not just the job and the breadwinner and all that, and the kids with the education. Okay. All right. So Deborah, I know you asked your question. If you didn't get it fully answered, ask it again in a different way, and we'll look to address that. But I'd like to move on again, just for the sake of time. And again, what I love about our live video chats and connecting people in community is that it's not like this all goes away, right? We can continue to reach out to each other with and build that village together. And so that means remaining connected after this. So I want to touch on something you said, Director Dent, and I want to actually bring in Dr. Brian Moore, who's a fatherhood practitioner here in our state as well, on this question. And it was around the church. And what it seems to me, what I am hearing, and maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but it seems that the best thing the church can do right now is just to create the supportive community that is willing to hold fathers and families in this burden, this extra burden that is happening. But if you are a person of faith that's on this call, and you may be like me, maybe not, but when we look around our churches, we often find it difficult to engage men in ministry, right? It just seems very difficult. Maybe it's just the churches I've been in, but I'm suspecting not. And so we often see, faith-based programming that focuses on marriage, strong marriages as a way of programming to men. And even family ministry often leads more toward single moms and helping single moms make it through. So to me, the family ministry model lacks a focus on the role of fathers. I'm just going to put that out there. And maybe I'm wrong again, but Dr. Howard, I would like for you to kind of step in and because of your unique position also as a faith leader, can you give our faith community folks some direction or advice on maybe what the faith community can do to minister to fathers and thereby strengthening families and maybe what effective fatherhood ministry would look like from the perspective that we've been talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'll try tremendously to be brief, but this is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. In fact, about 20 years ago, when I started the organization that I had, which is Passages Connecting Fathers and Families, I realized at that time that there were very few organizations or churches that were really reaching into the community to serve fathers and meeting them in their unique places where they were in their lives and physically in the community. So I would say the primary thing that we have to do is leave our structural buildings, those churches that are there for community faith, are very important, especially in minority communities. There are lots of churches, but the reality is they were still missing the opportunity to serve young men and who really are many oftentimes are divagating through life, just wandering without direction, without encouragement. And here's a unique opportunity for the faith community to reach beyond those structures and truly meet men, specifically in this instance, fathers where they are. Fathers, I've been throughout the state and throughout the country advancing the message that it's critical to listen to fathers who are saying to us, I need help. I don't fully understand how to be an effective father, but I have an aspiration to do so. And oftentimes, and I think you alluded to this earlier, that public policy has driven fathers out of the lives of their children. In many instances, we have fathers who really have an aspiration and a desire to be involved in the lives of their children. And the faith community should come alongside of them and help them develop the skills necessary to be involved in the lives of their children. And we can do that by living our faith, not just about talking about it, not about saying that they need to be at Bible study or the men's Bible group and those types of things. And while those things are essential in advancing our relationships in the faith community, our men today are crying out for opportunities to just have role models, men who will meet them on Instagram or Facebook or wherever it might be in social media world that we're now living, and saying, hey, I want to help you achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve. So that's why 20 years ago, I didn't see a lot of that occurring in our faith community. So I set up a nonprofit organization, which is Passages Connecting Fathers and Families. And I specifically named it Connecting Fathers and Families because I felt that in too many instances, our fathers were in fact disconnected from their family. They, as Director Dent and President Howard have mentioned, there are a lot of things that fathers are expected to do, not the least of which is be financially involved in the lives of their children. But the adage is that if, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but if you have neither boots nor straps, it's a little difficult to do that. And so we have an obligation as a community, a faith community, to reach out to individuals, to not sell them so much on religion, but to live that faith in ways in which reassures them that the missteps that they have made, that they will be able to overcome those mistakes and move forward so that they truly can be the role models of their children. No government, no dollars will raise children. So what we need to do is restore men to their rightful place in the family so that they're leading their families in a way which reinforces for their children that the number one thing that we can do is help fathers be present in the lives of their children. And I could go on, and I'll be glad to, but I'll just stop there in the interest of time.
But I do have a follow-up question for you. And this is like right on the street. How does a person of faith who's left their building start to connect with a young father who has neither boots nor bootstraps, and come with good faith and want to help, but do that? How do we do that in a way where it brings dignity to the young man? as opposed to some level of judgment, or make them feel like they are not a good person or not a good father because they don't have the means. So how do we approach young men in a way where it restores their dignity, and it is a step by step and step with step, and I want what's best for you, but I'm not going to tell you how to do that. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you very much for asking the question. I think the important thing to do for individuals who do not have necessarily a lot of experience in working with the population that we're talking about is come alongside organizations and other groups that are already doing the work. Volunteer with those groups, collaborate with those groups, so that you begin to learn not only the language, but the history and the challenges that these individuals face. It's very frightening to be a dad and to try to navigate the waters. And sometimes we're afraid to ask for the help that we need. But there are lots of organizations, and thank so much for the leadership of Director Dent, who in fact has taken the Fatherhood Initiative to 29 counties in the state of Ohio and is marching towards 88. Hopefully in the not too distant future. As we continue to bring Fatherhood Initiative organizations online, there are unique opportunities for the faith community to develop programming and collaborations with those entities that are already doing the work, because it can be a little frightening and intimidating just to run out on the street and say, hey, I'm going to save you, or I'm going to help you become a better dad. People might be off-put by that, but there's certainly unique opportunities to collaborate with existing organizations or to convene meetings with existing organizations to see how we can jointly reach the target population.
Okay, great. Thank you for that wisdom.
Quickly as well, I think it's real important too with those young men that programs are working with. There's good in everybody. And so I think sometimes just helping him to realize that, yeah, there's all of this stuff that we need to help you with, but we also can accentuate like what's good about you, your desire to want to be a good father. I know, I talked a lot with my OP and FF brothers. They're my brothers in fatherhood. And, we don't hear dad say, it is my goal to be a bad father, right? Just because you don't know how to doesn't mean that's your goal to be that. So
Right.
I think too, working with young men, you have to, like with anyone, you have to kind of take a look at the good side as well. Like you have all these other positive things. We'll address those other stuff, but let's do that as well. And then also real quickly, policy. Policy has to support what they're doing, right? Because if we have our faith organizations and our fatherhood programs or any other community program trying to help families, fathers and families,
Yes.
Policy cannot stand in the way of that. So policy has to make sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Be supportive. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's part of what's going to be happening at the Fatherhood Summit, I hope. So that's where we're going to head next. But that does make sense, in that we have to, within our communities and within our, structures around policy, we can spend a lot of time beating our heads if there is still a wall that's not going to be moved. And so, okay. Got it. All right, so let's pivot to probably what's going to be our favorite topic, is the upcoming Fatherhood Summit. Again, it's September 2nd and 3rd and 5th. The Fatherhood celebration is on September 5th. So a couple things I'd like our participants to know right off the bat. One, it's a total virtual summit. And two, it's free. So it's a free virtual summit as well. And so those two big barriers have been removed for participation. So, and I was privileged, Director Dent was kind enough to share with me some of the content and the connections that are going to be provided. And so it's amazing. And there's so much helpful and cool opportunities that are happening. So Mr. Howard, I would like for you to start out with, let's start with our why. And so why would a community member who isn't necessarily steeped in fatherhood practicing at this point, but maybe is interested in it, or just wants to come and get better equipped to support fathers in their communities, why would they want to participate in the Fatherhood Summit?
Yes, great question. I think, first and foremost, we're all in the fatherhood serving business. And it doesn't matter if you work at the local convenience store. It doesn't matter if you work at the fitness facility. You're hearing the stories. And typically when you're hearing the stories, kind of intertwined in that is, people are seeking help. And so, we always like to say in this business, we have a small window to make a huge impact. And you may be the front door to the evolution of that family dynamic for that father. And so, again, we have to accept that role. And so this is an opportunity for individuals who are thinking about, and getting into the work to really understand some of the dynamics that are in play with, fathers and families. But not only understanding what some of those dynamics are, but what are some of the solutions. And so, we really look at this conference as a way to, first and foremost, identify what fatherhood work looked like, but also to educate people. I can tell you that, for the Fatherhood Project in Cincinnati, Ohio, I would say probably over 80% of the fathers that we engage, they're coming to us either for child support or access and visitation. So we know what our data is. So we have to make sure that we're ready to address those issues right up front, because that builds the trust. That goes back to what Dr. Moore was talking about with the faith community. We all do something well, whatever role we play, and how can we leverage that to help others? That's what it comes down to. And once those doors are open, the trust is built, and then we have those opportunities to help in those areas where the individual may not see themselves as really needing a lot of help. So this is an opportunity to get some resources that will, not only, transform a father, but transform the entire family. And who wouldn't want to do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who wouldn't want to do that? I mean, we've been crying out for that for years, right? So thank you for that. And again, if you all have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll circle back around to those. So on the other side of that spectrum, Director Dent, is for fatherhood practitioners, current practitioners. Why would they want to come? I mean, they're getting it on. They're busy. They are, they are plugging the wounds and, stopping the bleeding right now. But to pause for a couple days.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Especially for the second and third, and not to take anything from the fifth, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But on the second, we're going to have the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. Actually, for the first part of the day, really talk about what fatherhood looks like in Ohio. Again, we are the only state that has a commission on fatherhood that's structured. So it's not that there aren't other maybe state initiatives or commissions, but the way that we're structured, in statute with funding, with staff, so forth and so on. And so what the practitioners will receive is we don't want to water down fatherhood in Ohio. When we say fatherhood, it is a business. And if you apply for funding from the Commission on Fatherhood, be ready to do these things. The second part of the day is grant writing. So we have hired someone who had received for other organizations millions of dollars in fatherhood funding. So you're going to get this free grant writing for writing fatherhood grants, to foundations, to the Commission on Fatherhood, to HHS. Hi, James. See Mr. Murray there. To the federal office whenever they do, which they have already done that, but whenever they do in the future release their Healthy Marriage, Responsible Fatherhood grant funding from the Administration for Children and Families. So we wanted to actually have the summit before that money dropped so that folks would be ready to apply for that grant. But again, a lot of different organizations offer grants. And so we want folks to receive that funding. And then on the primary day, again, there are a series of workshops or breakout sessions. And you're going to have at your disposal, at your fingertips, state and county folks that work in child support, and then practitioners who work with the government entities. So what we wanted to do was sort of bring the practitioner as well as the government person into the breakout session for folks to be able to engage, hear some of the recent policy. I know with the child support, I know that's always a huge topic for our fathers and their programs, but they're going to talk about the child support guidelines for Ohio. That's new legislation that was changed last year. And, so when computing child support, there's a change now. There are some great things that are in there that fatherhood has fought for many years to get into, get into the guidelines, like the self-sufficiency reserve. There's going to be a breakout session on child protective services, right? We know that when the child is removed from the home for, whatever reason, and mom and dad are not together, there has to be this diligent search effort for dad, and dad has to be added to the case plan if that's what he wants. So there's a lot of processes and policy from the government, and then the practitioners that engage with the families on a daily basis that will kind of be there on the Zoom breakout session, to answer questions and to have conversations. And as President Howard had mentioned earlier, to maybe solve some issues. We want to hear from the audience as well, because we don't know all the answers. And so just in this conversation, we may resolve something. So it won't be the typical workshop of talking heads and like a presentation. It's going to be an engaging conversation, but you'll have the subject matter experts there to facilitate each of the breakout sessions. So the practitioners definitely should be there.
Oh, great. Sounds sounds phenomenal. And then talk a little bit about the 5th. What's the 5th?
Yes. So on the 5th, that's the post celebration of fathers, and we're inviting Ohio dads, whomever, dads, just join us from 9 until 12. Bring your child, and it's breakfast with dad. We hope to see dads and their kids at their kitchen table or wherever. My kids never ate at the table. I'm not sure what that's about, but with your Fruit Loops or your pancakes, whatever. And we're going to hear from former NFL Browns player William Green, and from I'm going to say Bengals, Mr. Howard, the former Bengals player, Icky Woods. Yeah. I'm a Steelers fan. Don't dance, Mr. Howard. I'm a Steelers fan. But so we have this thing back and forth. Yeah, Bengals, Browns. I'm in Ohio. I respect it. So we will have Mr. Icky Woods and Mr. Green to sort of start off. They'll kind of kick off the morning, and we're going to uplift and we're going to celebrate fathers. We have dads that have graduated from our fatherhood programs, and we're going to celebrate them. They have reached certain milestones, so we hope to see them with their children, but we will celebrate them and talk a little bit about where they were and where they are now, and just have a great time. So it will be a day of celebrating, uplifting, and just say, patting dad, because first of all, as Harold had stated, it's hard being a parent. It's hard being a father. It's really hard being a father because of all of these other sort of barriers and systematic kind of things that are not in your favor. But then to be a parent during COVID, right?
Yeah.
We had a lot of parenting time orders that weren't being followed because of COVID, right?
Oh, okay.
I have my children every other weekend, and she said, no, COVID, right? The whole child support, the stimulus checks. Oh my gosh, that was terrible for fathers. Everyone's waiting on their stimulus check. Well, if you had child support arrears, you weren't getting that stimulus check, right? Yeah. So when I talk about contentious relationships and anger and angst and anxiety that COVID, so where's your family now? And that's why I kind of talk about the resiliency and the policy. And
Yeah.
so I think, James, and you can shake your head, maybe yes, no, but I think if there's another stimulus check that's not supposed to happen, that it's garnished for child support.
Okay. Wow. And that's a reality. That is a
yes,
in your face reality. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's life.
Yeah.
And so, but we're going to celebrate it on the 5th. So that one, I really hope to see a lot of folks there with their children.
Well, what gets celebrated gets repeated. So we want people to continue to do the right things, even if oftentimes they don't feel like they have much of a choice to do that. So, we're going to move to questions from our audience or our participants, and there are a couple already in the queue. but how can people find out more information about the summit and register for the different pieces? And again, I've gotten some of the emails about how to do all that, and I will send that out to everybody who registered for this, so you'll have it in your hands. But just briefly, how can they find out more information?
Fatherhood.ohio.gov, right there. Yep.
All right, great. So we're going to open it up for questions, but I'm going to take the first one that's in the chat. And the question is, I'm working with incarcerated men who can't even get to the regular programming. They're bored, they're asking for materials. So the question is, do you have any recommendations of materials that would speak directly to and would be helpful for incarcerated individuals and incarcerated men?
I do. I can send it out, yes.
Okay, you'll send it. Any sneak peeks on that?
Right. Well, yes. I've been to every state prison with the State Office of Child Support. We go in, we do presentations, 2-hour presentations, but I kind of start the presentations off with touching them as fathers and what they can do while they're here as dads. So we have some things that dads can do while they're incarcerated, even if pre-COVID, even if folks or the mom or whomever was not bringing the child in to visit with dad. So there are some things that we do have that I did present to them. That
Okay.
You're in prison, nobody stripped you your title as father. It's more difficult, but you can still engage and still have that connection with your child. So we do have a list of things that
Okay.
as an incarcerated parent.
Great. Kind of to piggyback on that, a lot of our men are coming home, right? 98% of those that are incarcerated do return. In Ohio, the average incarceration stay is 30 months. Okay, it's only what, 2.5 years. So some folks might start inside with programming. This is even pre-COVID, but particularly now with COVID, some things are getting accelerated with releases. So Harold, President Howard, I would love for you to talk about, is there anything that is on the outside that you would recommend? I mean, that might even bridge that transition from inside to outside?
Yeah, I think, well, there are a number of things, and obviously it varies from county to county. I know here in Cincinnati, we have the Office of Reentry, who kind of serves as that liaison. Also, I think Fatherhood Services serve as a liaison as well. What we absolutely know about that transition is that we have to continue to build assets for, the men that are returning back to the community, because research shows the more assets I have, the less likely I am to recidivate. And so, the quicker, again, we all serve as that front door. So, the minute we are able to, or one of these men ask for help, we have to be the one that kind of do the assessment and make sure we point them in the right direction. Because what we also know that if things don't change around for them within that 3-year period or window, the likelihood of them recidivating is going to go up. So, again, find out what is equivalent to the Office of Reentry here in Hamilton County, in your county. A lot of that is driven by, child support as well. Guys are coming back, they have higher arrearages. It's pressure from the parenting partner to pick up where they left off if they were, selling drugs or whatever else, because we need money. And so there's all of these different pressures. And so, really we have to be that agent that, creates those different options for these men that are coming out back into the community. That's where the faith-based community also comes into play and can assist as well. So I think it's vital that, we all do our part, do our homework, and really figure out, again, what are those components in our individual counties that we can start forging those relationships with to assist these men as they're transitioning back to the community.
Great. So here's a question. Who is actually doing that well? Jody, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Who is actually doing that well now that we could use as a model? So who's actually helping fathers transition from incarceration back into the community? Who's doing that really well? I think that's the question.
Yep. Kim, you want to talk about Carlos, or Dr. Moore, you want to talk about passages? Or?
Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think Burl is another one. So we do fund fatherhood programs to start in the prison, because we are TANF funded. We are really kind of looking for 9 months from release, but I'll give it a really good example of Burl Lemon, who we're funding Forever Dads. He serves Muskingum, Perry, and Morgan, I think, counties, but he also was doing programming at Noble Corrections, right? So he's doing the programming in Noble, but then also when dads are released, if they're coming back to any of those 3 counties that he's serving, he's still kind of, there to meet them and greet them when they come out, and they can continue to work with his program on the co-parenting, and then again, the economic stability, which is again, the job readiness, obtaining a job and maintaining a job. So I wish I had, and that's really my dream, don't know what's going to happen in my lifetime, but to ensure that every county is covered. And I hate holding stuff up on Zoom or whatever, but here's my map of who I have covered right now. And we're getting ready to release another single county RFGA to cover some other spots in the state. So look for that. Again, you won't know when it's released unless you put your email address on my website, but we are going to be offering funding for a fatherhood program in Mahoning, Northwest and West Ohio, and then Southeast Ohio. And so if I could have every program be able to do that type of work in the prison and meet the guys, and then when they're being released, if they're coming back to your county, that's great. But if they're not and they're going to another county, they can do a gentle kind of handoff and say, hey, Talbot House is in Butler County. You're returning to Butler. You're incarcerated in, London maybe. And so you're going to Butler. And I'm doing programming. So Carlos was doing programming at London Corrections. He could do a gentle handoff to Talbot House because they're, so it's this whole network of every county being able to do what some counties are doing because I'm providing the funding, but I don't have enough funding to do that right now for all 88 counties. But that's why it's real important to have that mobilization project in your county. So again, the 29 counties that have, and we do have about 12 in the hopper that are interested in that. But basically all that is, it's your network of leadership in your county that goes through a 6 to 9 month training that OPNFF coaches you through. And then once you turn into ODJFS, your action plan, we cut you a $10,000 check and you go forth and implement your action plan. And every county is going to have a different action plan. It's going to be up to your leadership. And one of the folks in the leadership, one of the entities is a faith organization. So we do want to see a faith organization part of your leadership team in your county. Okay. So.
Great. And we can find out more about the mobilization project at the Fatherhood Summit.
Yep. And on my website. There is a whole
website.
Yep. There's a whole page dedicated to that. That gives you a bit more. Okay. Yes. There will be a breakout session that President Howard is going to moderate.
Okay. Okay, great. And so this may actually partly answers the next question by Stacy. She's a FCS educator with Central State Extension, and they're working on creating holistic programming that addresses goal setting, financial management, workforce readiness, skills, personal hygiene, nutrition, well, the holistic framework there. Who can she connect with to help shape the project plan to help with the fatherhood initiative?
What county is she again? I'm sorry.
Stacy did not say.
Because we have some other really great local if she wants someone local or if she wants like one of us.
This is Stacy right here.
There we go.
And here's the great part. I'm a regional coordinator in Northeast Ohio. So actually, all of my counties, Ashtabula, Carroll, Columbiana, Cuyahoga, Geauga, Harrison, Jefferson, Lake, Mahoning, Portage, Stark, Trumbull, and Tuscarawas.
Gotcha. Very good. Yes, we are fun. There's quite a few. Actually, you can connect with me, but I'm going to tell you, you said Portage as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Moore, his passages, they cover Portage. And then I also have another program I'm funding in Summit and Stark. They're actually providing fatherhood programming in Summit and in Stark as well. But we have Dr. Moore here on the line, and I think I saw one of his staff, Billy. I think Billy Lieber was on. But if you're in Portage as well, so we do have some resources in Northeast Ohio that can help you, with one being on the call.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Stacey, I'll just chime in and say there's no greater mentor out there than Dr. Moore.
Woohoo!
Yep.
I appreciate the opportunity to do that to you, Dr.
You're
Moore.
I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
I'm staying muted.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so one of the things I will do as well is I will put out a contact list from this call of everybody who has registered and participated in the call. So Stacey, you'll have their contact information after this. Other questions, feel free to unmute if you want and ask it directly, or again, type it in the chat. So we have, I'm just checking my time, probably another 10 minutes if anybody has any other questions. Anyone? Your mute button, for those who don't know, if you put on your little tile, it's up at the top there, it says unmute, or down at the bottom left. If not, I guess you all have, our guest speakers have thoroughly covered what's on everybody's mind today. So yay, thank you for that.
Yes. And I wanted to say, Reba, as well, we have a fatherhood email box as well. You guys can email me. I mean, folks who know me who's on the actual call, you can actually call me, you can send an email, but there's also a general fatherhood email box as well that you can send questions to. Again, I really hope to see you guys at the summit because there is just so much information. And one of the things, Harold, we did not mention was that vendor room. I'm looking at Ms. Sharon Kane from ODYS. She and I had a conversation this morning. This vendor room, I'm going to tell you, is probably the best feature of the summit. So when you click into the link to get into the conference, you can go into the vendor room. And when you click that vendor room, it's going to be a graphic. It's like you're in a conference. There's like booths. So there's 18 different booths in there. And when you click a booth, I'm going to just say ODYS, Ms. Kane, because I see your face. And when you go into that booth, you're going to be on a Zoom call and you're going to be able to talk with folks from ODYS and ODRC. It's going to be all of these Zoom meetings. So there's all of these different Zoom breakout sessions and vendor rooms, occurring at the same time concurrently. So yes, there's going to actually be a state office of child support booth. So if you go and you listen to one of the breakout sessions and you're like, well, I want to know a little bit more about that. Go to the child support booth, click there, you'll go into a Zoom room and you'll be able to speak with representatives from the state office of child support. It is just amazing what they're doing with our summit. So
that's awesome.
I forgot about the vendor room here. We talked about the breakout sessions. We talked about the second, the third, the fifth, but the vendor room feature is going to just be amazing.
That's great. So just a couple quick comments, and then I'll leave it to you all to kind of wrap it up. From Michelle Payette, who I have met through Prison Fellowship, and she does the Angel Tree program. She's the regional coordinator. She's out of state actually, but Ohio's her territory. And she says, I wish every state had this opportunity to engage fathers to be healthier dads. Thank you so much for the great work you're doing. Ron White says, thank you. Terry Harak says, thank you. Julie DiCarlo, thank you. Great meeting. And then Daryl Graves actually that was for me, so I'm going to leave that one for me. Also, in addition to the Fatherhood Summit, September 2-3, we also have the Building Bridges event the following month, October 1-2, free to everybody, and we're going to do some more unpacking. It's actually called the community experience because we want you to be in community. We want to surface solutions and strategies as communities around the pandemic through the lens of reentry. Some of it will touch on what we've talked about today, but it's taking it and it's again focusing on reentry, but fathers and reentry, families and reentry. So you all are invited to that as well. Final thoughts, and then we will sign off for the day. Director Dent, President Howard, any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say that, and I don't know, you said Terry, she has like a region, but Michigan actually reached out to me yesterday, and they're going to approach their state legislative branch to start a commission. So he talked to me about my budget as well. So there are a lot of different states that are kind of looking into Ohio to see what we're doing with TANF funds. So there may be more states that will come on board to use their TANF dollars to engage fathers. So important.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity that you all allowed us to come and spend an hour with you all. You know, just know that our families need each and every one of us, and you know, hopefully we all are willing and able to assist where needed. So.
Well, thank you both again for giving of your time, your expertise, your wisdom. Thank you, Dr. Moore, as well, for speaking truth to us today. And if you don't mind, I would just like to pray us out, because I believe strongly that God is at work in all this, and that we can't do it all on our own, and we need each other, and we need that higher power as well. So if you would please just join me in prayer and in my blessing each and every one of you that are on the front lines, that are doing this work. Know that we love you and we appreciate everything that you're doing. So if you'll just join me in prayer. Most gracious God, I just thank you for every single person who participated in this call, every person who has a heart for fathers and for our families, Lord. We just pray to you for wisdom and guidance, and to measure our steps in the way that it's going to be most effective. And Lord, we are just thankful for the community and for our state of Ohio and the wisdom that has brought us to this point. Lord, we pray over the Fatherhood Summit. May it embolden, may it encourage, may it engage more people to be supportive of our fathers in their incredibly important role, Lord. We know that fatherhood is a creation from you, and that you designed men to step into and mentor and be the guides for their families, Lord. And so we just pray for our Ohio families, our Ohio fathers, and for the men and women on this call that are doing the work. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And we hope to see you in September at the Fatherhood Summit.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Be blessed.
Be blessed.